Hello and welcome to Rise and Shine with Alyssa. I am your hostess, the consultress, here bringing you awesome, innovative conversations from entrepreneurs around the world that can feed your insight to make better decisions in this age of disruption. We are no longer going back to anything normal, ladies and gents. It's time for the entrepreneur to come and save the world, where we solve emergent problems for new challenges of today so we can create what comes tomorrow and be part of that challenge and change. So I have the privilege in my life and in my work to meet some really amazing characters. And today I have the privilege of having Mr. Dan Silberberg here in the house with me. Welcome to Rise and Shine.
Alyssa, it is great to be with you and cheers.
Cheers. So Dan, we met on the interwebs doing some business networking, and I just thought, well, that guy's got some interesting stuff to say. Let's have a meeting. And so we did. We booked a meeting for a half an hour. I wound up on the phone for 2 hours. The kinds of conversations that I feel like come alive when I'm hanging out with you are cutting edge innovation, new ways to think about existing problems, and also ways to really up your game. So I just want to thank you, first of all, for helping me step into that kind of level of conversation, because it's not a kind of conversation you run across every day. So thank you and high five for being that level of conversation for me. And, let us know here in the audience of entrepreneurs, investors, and parents, kind of what is some of the passions that you're working on and the things that are showing up in your life or in your business?
Well, that's kind of a broad question. So, just by way of a quick background, I've spent 40 years in business. I have done men's work and growth and development for 40 years. I have a master's degree in leadership and coaching. I worked in the Global 100 and did 4 or 5 startups as a serial entrepreneur. So I've worked globally. So I've seen a lot of movies, is kind of how I talk about it. And business is really a passion of mine. So for entrepreneurs today, I'm going to set a little bit of context. I'm assuming if you're an entrepreneur that you at least were alive when we had 9/11. And 9/11 was what I call an inflection point and a paradigm shift. And everything that we knew with certainty, stability, we'd wake up in the morning and the sun would be shining, that all changed on 9/11. I think with COVID and just a little bit after it, we are at another inflection point and another paradigm shift. And so I'm of the belief now that band-aiding what is current is not going to work. It's actually going to be a whole new infrastructure. So if you're an entrepreneur today, you're they'll tell you it's so much easier to raise money, it's costs less to run a business and do digital marketing, and they give you all of that, but really in point of fact, it's a whole different game. So from a context perspective, we came out of the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution was a complicated economic model. And by that, what I mean is making a car on an assembly line required a compliant kind of person who graduated high school, don't get bored doing the same thing over and over and over every day, right? And the complication was all the different pieces and parts that had to come together to assemble the car. But once the car design and architecture was there, it didn't change. Therefore, just complicated for assembly. We're not in that world anymore. So
Mm-mm.
we are now in the world of intelligence. And what that means is it's a whole different environment. We're going from complicated to complex. We're going to move now to a world where if you're an entrepreneur, you're not going to be able to set an architecture and wait for 15 years. So here's the thesis. If you are doing traditional leader development as an entrepreneur, and you're doing it in a traditional business hierarchy, then you are practicing enterprise and entrepreneurial suicide.
Yes, sir. Holy cow.
Okay, so if that doesn't, like, whoa, what's he talking about? Then I kind of
Yeah.
missed the mark, right?
It's no, it's so timely that you're talking about. We have already exited the industrial age and we are now on the crest of the next wave of evolution. But some things have to change. Some things have to die. You know, the old way of doing business, the old way of thinking about that paradigm of you sit down, you shut up, you screw the screw. That doesn't serve anymore. We are not in the age where that type of production is valuable because guess what? Right now we have all sorts of technology, machine learning, AI, and all of these other disruptions that are taking the repetitious, boring, I'll call it inhumane type of work and setting it outside of humans into another space so that it frees us to be able to think more creatively in order to collaborate and use our wisdom because now knowledge is free. Knowledge is everywhere. So if you're still operating on an assumption that used to work 20, 30, 50 years ago, you are already, like you said, you're practicing something that is a dying art and it's dying faster and faster every day. So when we talk about the age of disruption, all the opportunity that's here, all of the ways for us to create that next paradigm shift together. I continue to talk about, you know, turning things upside down, looking for what's up for renew and up for review, because it's pretty much everywhere. It's not just how you wake up and go live your life or how you wake up and go do your work. It literally is going to infiltrate every aspect of your life in ways that you didn't imagine beforehand because you had a preconcept before this that no longer exists as we move forward. So, in terms of entrepreneurship, in terms of creating something that will quickly adapt and help to usher in this next era of change, what are some of the patterns you see that are emerging?
Yeah. So what Einstein basically told us was that if you create a problem, you cannot solve it at the same level that you created it. You actually need to rise above it. I would argue that we're moving from a three-dimensional business world to a fifth-dimensional business world. So what does that mean? Well, you talked a little bit about disruption, but let me really lay out this tapestry for what an entrepreneur is up against. When you look at disruption, you have political disruption, geopolitical disruption, social disruption, educational disruption, political norm disruption, institutional disruption. Every one of those could be a full-time job for an entrepreneur or a CEO. So that's kind of the foundation. Now, if you kind of imagine this is a building with pillars, you have a pillar of volatility, unlike anything in the industrial age. You have a pillar of uncertainty. You have a pillar of complexity, and you have a pillar of ambiguity. Every one of those is a full-time job, but wait a minute, you had all those disruptions full-time job. A traditional CEO or a traditional entrepreneur was supposed to have clarity and certainty and, quote, look around the corner. Well, with volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, if you're going to wait for all of that to be demonstrated, you're in reactivity.
That's true.
So as an entrepreneur, are you going to react to the world or are you going to bend the world to you? There's only two ways to play. Either I will bend the world to my reality or I will be forced to bend myself to it. One is working intentionally, the other is working reactively. Now, if that wasn't enough for you to figure out, you now need to have social emotional intelligence. You have to be a lifelong learner. You have to be able to traverse multiple generations of workers with very different ideas of what a successful life looks like. So now we've got the pillars and the in-between of the pillars, but now we're going to kind of put a little top on it. That's going to be AI. That's going to be VR, AR. That's going to be quantum computing, data science, and analytic. There's nothing in that complexity that even mirrors what happened in the Industrial Revolution. So as an entrepreneur, what is your business model, but more importantly, what is your business system? Systems will determine your culture. So we hear all the time, we want to build a great culture. Or corporations go, we're going to do culture change. You don't need to do culture change. Your system is the culture. So what you promote, what you incent, what you communicate, what you reward, what you continuously show up as, that's how people act. And if you want them to act differently, change the system. Why? Because the purpose of a system is homeostasis. What does that mean? Take a look at your family, and if you have siblings, in your family, did everybody have a role? That's a system. And what happens when you color outside the line too much? There is the fear of, they're going to throw me out and I will be abandoned, right? That is the human fear. So when we look at this, we want to be able to move from a business hierarchy to a business ecosystem. So an ecosystem is a whole different game. The hierarchy are boxes and pyramid that gets narrower to the top. An ecosystem is circular. That's how energy works. So now we have teams of people, not top-down command likes you, you get a bonus. Now we have teams that are peer-to-peer accountability. So if you hired a sales team and a marketing team, and you're trying to tell them what to do up here when you're only seeing 20% of what's going on in the market, you're too slow, you're not vulnerable, you won't drive risk-taking, you won't drive innovation. The entrepreneur has the ability, and the only reason to be there is to out-innovate all the other slow ducks.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, so the question I think that's kind of brewing over here is the goal still to be the fastest innovator? Is the goal still to be the most visible? Or is there something else at play? Because like what comes to mind when I hear you talk about like the shape of an ecosystem versus the hierarchy of, I'll call it traditional antiquated business model. In this ecosystem, I feel like there is a lot more collaboration than competition. And that feels like the underpinning that we're getting at as this entrepreneurial realm and life in general continues to evolve. I feel very strongly that we're going from a competitive model into a collaborative model. And the collaborative model, when you look at like systems of communities, the collaborative model is the thing that brings them together. You know, I now live in an agricultural community. The thing that brings people together is sharing resources, being kind to one another, being willing to lend a hand. And all of those common principles are the thing that binds a community. So same thing when you're talking about an enterprise that has teams and systems of teams, you know, where are these components helping and aiding one another? Because I don't feel like in this next revolution or a paradigm shift, there's much room or tolerance even for competitive behavior that's like, you know, dog eat dog. What do you think?
Yeah. So here's the thing. In terms of an ecosystem, the value that I see in it, in a top-down game, there's backbiting, there's a lot of politics, there's stabbing people in the back, it's all about me. In an ecosystem team, what matters is your integrity. What matters is what you promise, can you deliver, right? What matters is how you execute to the goal. But in an ecosystem, instead of being told what to do and then being told how to do it, there is a merging of strategic intent with buy-in of the team. Now there's skin in the game. Now I've had a voice. Now I'm seen, heard, matter, and can contribute. Our energy goes up, our commitment goes up, our engagement goes up. It's a whole different realm. But this peer-to-peer accountability is the really big deal because I can always fool a manager one-to-one. I can't fool a team when I said by Wednesday, I will have this portion done. And on Wednesday, I'm like, oh, I forgot. That's not going to work, right? So this self-management creates a whole different level of accountability that actually is enhancing, and it gets to be magical.
Yeah,
But if,
it
but if,
sounds very much like when you have more skin in the game, like you said, when you're more bought into the process and you're a part of creating the solutions, you have more at stake, you have more reason to pay attention, you have more reason to show up. And that's, I think, that's the underpinning of exponential growth and results, is having everybody bought in. It's not like top of the house wants this done, nobody else really wants to, but hey, it pays the bills, so we're going to do what we need to do. It doesn't look like that anymore. It looks like this is attractive to me because I have this skill set. This is attractive to me because I have a complementary skill set and I have resources to bring that together. So not only is it peer-to-peer accountability, but the systems or the networks that it takes to execute a project or execute a strategic vision, the right players, like having that right fit, having that alignment becomes more important than having bodies in chairs. You know, it's like the shift in the paradigm is not just anybody will do, we're making this repeatable, wash, rinse, repeat so that anybody can do it. No, that is the thing that's being upended. This is not a one size fits all economy anymore. We're moving into a unique genius zone for each of the players that are involved individually, as a team, and as an ecosystem as well. Like it matches win-win-win across all of those plateaus.
yeah, and if you look at the paradigm shift and the inflection point we're talking about, what's that mean? Well, with the introduction of AI, the left brain, thinking logically, thinking rationally, thinking in time frame, I need more information, anything that is a process to an outcome will be taken over by AI. So if you have an accounts payable department and you have 17 people in the department to try to collect the money, yeah, or put the money out to vendors, you'll be able to do that with 2 people. 18 touches with AI will come down to 2 touches. So you're not going to be, if you're in a job, which is why it's really great to be an entrepreneur. If you're in a job, the likelihood of you having that job over the next 5 years is 80% you won't. Because all of that stuff is what AI does. It does it more effectively, it does it more efficiently, it does it quicker, less mistakes, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. So where's the value now? The reason you want to get to an ecosystem is the real value for entrepreneurs is resilience, adaptability, speed to market, innovation. These are all right brain activities. This is not what AI does. And if you want to have a job, you you will need to shift your left brain wonderfulness to your right brain that you have shut down since childhood because no one really thought that would be a whole lot of fun. But then you look at people like Steve Jobs, or you look at Jeff Bezos, or you look at pick your favorite entrepreneurs out there. Somehow they never got trapped in that left brain only life.
If I may, the industrial age that we've all been exposed to and most likely indoctrinated to through the system of schooling, the way that we all know it today, has been the number one thing that the industrial age has used to create human machine parts. The sit down, shut up, screw the screw. When I mean, I talk about this a lot because Cynthia Greenewalt, who I knew over a decade ago, who we're still friends today, she showed me this third wave thing that Alvin Toffler brought to light, and
Mhm.
how we're demolishing the industrial age and entering this new, highly humane, highly technological society. But when we went from nomadic to agrarian, that was a paradigm shift. When we went from, farming, agrarian, we went from mostly agrarian, then into this uh, technological space in the industrial revolution. That was our first like wisp of machine learning. And what needed to happen for us to be able to be a part of assembly line production was we needed to train out of the population that thing which was very necessary in the agrarian age. We needed to train out that creativity and that circadian rhythm, natural flow with how the seasons and the years progress and staying in harmony with that. But no, we needed to change how we thought and program ourselves in to be able to sustain repetitious, boring behaviors so that we could be a part of the industrial age. So when we were 5 years old, we were put into this system that over 15-year period, some of us longer, we had learned that sitting down, behaving and obeying authority, externalizing our creativity to being graded by other people. You know, this is me being correct. No, that's not me being correct. Okay. And had we learned that over a 15-year period, most of us are formative years of who we were becoming. And then when we were done with that training, then we could sustain ourselves in the industrial age to be able to do repetitious tasks. What's happening today is that our whole society is needing to flip over, upend that notion that we've been taught we needed to do, go to school, get a job, retire. That whole paradigm is being dismantled because our creativity is being commanded of us. Our ability to use our innovation and to connect with other people, that is the currency that we're now minting in order to be successful and in order to achieve the next paradigm shift. So where does all the things we learned, where does that belong? It's going to be ugly because people are going to resist change. It's easier to fool a man than to convince a man he's been fooled. So all of the people on the planet right now have to come alive and say, okay, well, that used to work. Now I need to learn something new. And the resistance is super huge. It's like a tsunami of resistance in the individuals. This is where I believe entrepreneurs definitely get an upper hand, because when we have been questioning all of these things to create value, to create a business, to create an enterprise that delivers value and we get paid to do it because other people want to give us the money to receive the value that we're providing in the world, like that's kind of been the precursor to this massive wave shift. And in order for us to do it collectively, the rest of us have to step into the fact that our creative brain is who we always were. It's something that was trained out of us early, but it is absolutely our necessary thing to be able to thrive and survive in what's coming next. So we have to unlearn. Like, this is part of the reason why I unschooled my children for 6 years, because I myself had to be unschooled. I had to stop thinking about things as learn this, regurgitate it, get a grade, then move on. That's conveyor belt thinking, and that's not applicable anymore. So how does a new entrepreneur, not a new entrepreneur, how does someone who is an entrepreneur adjust now to this new thinking? What kind of tools or resources are available to kind of start descaling the residue of the industrial age and to rearm yourself with what can be most pivotal, most useful going forward?
Yeah, so one of the key, one of the things I've worked on for 40 years is, what does it mean to be a leader? And part of being an entrepreneur is you are the leader, right? But instead of I'm the leader, do as you're told, you're now the leader who's the conductor, and the symphony has to all be able to play together, and you don't play any of the instruments.
Mm-hmm.
So now as an entrepreneur, here's your core question. What's your relationship to power? And if you're going to do it like your dad or mom, or the person that you think is incredible, that's probably not going to work. So we have taught people, if you go into Google and you type in leader, you can be a democratic leader, an autocratic leader. There's all these styles of leadership. There's over 1 million hits. So here's the thesis. Short of the Bible, leadership is the most written about, least understood topic in the world. Why? Because you can't teach it. Why? Because no one agrees what it is. See, 2 + 2 = 4. We can get a whole host auditorium to all agree. Yep, 2 + 2 is 4. If you had an audience of 30,000 people and said, can you write the succinct definition of leadership, you'd get 30,000 different answers. But what is unique, what is creative, what is alignment is the inside out. Traditional leadership, the reason I said traditional leadership and traditional business model combined is that it's all an external focus called shareholder value. As an entrepreneur leader, it's not about shareholder value, it's about company, community, in the world value. It's so much bigger. This is the difference between third dimensional and fifth dimensional thinking. So as an entrepreneur, what do you want? And when you ask that question, you know what they tell you? They tell you what they don't want.
Yeah, no, it's
What do you,
crazy.
right? What do you want in a spouse or a partner? Well, I don't want, no, I didn't ask that. What do you?
Yeah.
See, because freedom, which is, see, we are going to move, and this is, I hope not too political. We're in a world right now of collective. Everybody's equal. Everybody gets the same. Everybody gets a trophy when they lose. Everybody's wonderful. No, that's not true. Okay, that's false. So we need, it's this individual spirit, genius, gift, and artistry that each of us bring into this world. What are you here to deliver, to architect a spectacular life that influences you, your family, the community, and the world? It's a much bigger play today than General Motors, cars, a good brand, and we're making billions. That could all happen, but if that's the focus, then you're in the third dimensional world.
Yep. It really comes down to, I say, relationships run the world, but I love that what you said about your relationship to power and thinking about yourself not as a homogenized piece of a sea of the sameness, but really owning that individual spark and stepping into your leadership, because that is where the 90% of the iceberg below the surface actually is. It's inside of your alignment with who you really are, what you're really meant to do here, and then how do you inspire, innovate, and empower other people to join forces with you. There is no more do as I say. It's more about enrollment and let's collaborate. So we're going from combative and competition into, yes, collective, but collaborative. And the only way you can collaborate is if you are not the same, if you have complementary skill sets, if you have complementary mindsets. And so turning that over from everybody's a threat to everybody's a resource, that's the name of the game. And when I talk about the simple methodology that I have created, it starts with your strategy and what you're implementing and how you're measuring it, but not in the ways that you think, not in the ways that we have been told to create strategy and to do implementation and to measure. It's a whole new ball game. It is more about who are the partners that you need to achieve your vision, and do they share the vision with you? What kind of leader do you need to become, and who, as an ultimate identity, are you stepping into? Have you defined that? Well, you need to. And that's where exponential growth is possible and he hits the road. And by the way, that's what informs your new strategy. That's what informs your new way of implementing. And that's what informs what it is meaningful now to measure, because businesses of tomorrow and businesses of right now look nothing like the businesses of yesterday. And that's the thing we have to all wake up to. Dan, I'm so thankful you came today to Rise and Shine to share some of your wisdom, your expertise, and your knowledge. Please let us know how we can engage with you, connect with you. Where would you like people to go to find more about you and to connect with you further?
Just go to the quantum field and we should be meeting.
Yeah, just and there's Dan.
Exactly. So, well, my email is dan@intellechy.ai, and that's ENTELECHY.ai. So, or LinkedIn, Dan Silberberg, you can find me there as well. And I'll leave you with one thought that will be very confronting for a lot of people. Great creativity never comes from a team, it comes from an individual. What teams are great at is once the creativity is there, is the ability to generate, execute, and bring it to life. Picasso didn't have a team of people. Steve Jobs had a team of people, but it was Steve Jobs that created all this stuff that everybody loves and wants to talk about him forever, right? Leonardo da Vinci, pick your favorite creator. There is some spark within. This is the entrepreneur. If you're the entrepreneur engineer, I'm going to argue that you're more on the implementation execution side than you're going to be on the genius create. Now, how you architect that engineering, that could be really genius. So, I'm not a person that believes that everybody gets an equal voice in creativity, because I think that's usually a hurricane.
Yeah, so step into your creativity. Make more white space on your calendar. Get into those spaces where you can hear your thoughts, because creativity and innovation is what's creating tomorrow, is how you step into your leadership. So rise and shine, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. We broadcast every single Monday, premiere a new episode, 7:30 a.m. Eastern time. Let us know in the comments what is most powerful for you. And I can't wait to see you again next time, friends. Same bat time and same bat channel. So long.